Welcome back, Wheels and Weebies, to the channel. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a serum-style growl without serum, because I know that it's obviously not a very cheap synth, and it's very, very good quality from what I can tell, but obviously I can't get it. If you don't know, if you've never seen me before, I obviously, as you can tell, I'm a kid, so I don't have any access to. In fact, I'm literally using the demo of FL Studio, but that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. Now, I'm not a pro or anything, but I know what I'm doing to an extent. And I think master is probably my weakness, but yeah. I'm just going to show you a little snippet of something I've been working on. I'm working on a remix of Gangplank Galleon since they've, revealed K-Rool for Smash Ultimate. And I think this might be one of my new best things I've made. Now, I will admit there is one thing that's a little bit wrong with the growl. It sounds really weird if you can't hear the bass very well. So if it sounds a bit weak, you might want, I should just recommend you put on some good headphones, because then it will sound a lot better. Obviously, it should just sound good anyway. I'm not really sure where I've gone wrong to make it like this. Maybe you watching, you'll have an idea of what to do to fix it. But I promise if you're listening with good headphones, it should sound great. So anyway, here's the drop. There we go. So there you go. I just played it twice just so you could get another good listen. So yeah, oh, come on, quick close. As you can imagine, my laptop isn't really very good, so as you can imagine, with FL Studio and a bunch of other stuff on it, it just doesn't run very well, I would admit. That's why I'm playing it to you through an audio file, because if I test play it, literally I've got everything disabled except for the drums and this drop synth, which as you can see, there's a lot of layers to it. Shrek will be proud, but yeah, that's the kind of lag I'm on about, which is why I'm not playing it in here. But yeah. I imagine you just want me to get straight into this. So, in case you're wondering, the synths that you will need to do this without using Serum are Harmer. Well, actually, technically you wouldn't need Harmer, but Harmer's the one that I think is the best to do this with. What you do need is Fruity Granulizer and Edison. Those are the two things you need, and Harmer's only really there to be a respace. In fact, it doesn't even really have to be a res, but I just thought a respace would be the best thing to vocode it to. So anyway, if you don't actually know how Serum Growls work, or even what I'm on about, basically there's a synth called Serum that's really good for making dubstep, and I've been watching a lot of dubstep tutorials, obviously, because I'm basically self-taught, and the only thing that's taught me besides myself is dubstep tutorial videos and all that, in a lot of these tutorials, I'm so excited to hear how they've made this sound, and then it turns out they made it with Serum, and obviously I can't make it because I don't have Serum. And so eventually I got mad. I was just like, hang on, there's a bunch of synths that are on FL Studio already that actually do things that other synths can do. It's just that it's easier than the other synths. You don't have to use Harmer for a respace. You can make a respace with Citrus or GMS if you wanted. Obviously, it'd be better to use Harmer, but you can still make the same thing. So I thought if the same principle might apply to Serum. And it does, kind of. So the way people make those crazy Serum basses is they take an audio sample, and then they basically do the same thing a Fruity Granulizer would do to it. They split it up into loads of milliseconds of the sound, and basically they use a millisecond of the sound, the wave it's creating, as a wave for the sound. But since it's a wavetable synthesizer, it takes multiple samples and all the different waves for it, and then it switches between all the different wave shapes, and that's how you get the crazy sounds. Now, what are they sampling? Well, sometimes it's drums, and I have had some success vocoding drums to with granulizers to Palmer basses, which is interesting. But I find that that's really, really difficult to pull off. Like, to be fair, this is also pretty difficult to pull off, but it's really difficult to pull off. When you do that kind of stuff, you tend to get very interesting sounds, but they're very hard to work with. And if you just want a good basic growl, then you're not usually going to get that unless you get a really good, like, really lucky or hit a real sweet spot with your sound. So what they do with this Serum thing is basically they take a synth with like a bunch of unison and then they resample it, so it's basically like they're adding more unison on top and resample it until it's over like hundreds of copies of the sound, all at slightly different pitches. At this point, the sound is so watered down that it's really hard to make out. So on its own, this sound is terrible. Then I take so basically what I did is, because obviously the most unison you can get, at least as far as I know, on FL Studio with its synths, is GMS with 16 voices. So I got a saw with 16 voices. I recorded it, and then I made a copy of it that was like 10 cent tones lower, and then 20, and then 30, and all that stuff like. And I kept messing around until I got this. Oh, what? It doesn't sound like that. I think that's just because the amount of effects I've got on it. Yeah, anyway, but yeah. Basically, we get this sound that's just like a super unison saw. And then, we put it into the granulizer. We got it to play these notes, which are part of the drop. And now we get into what this green and pink modulation is. So the green is the wave spacing. So basically, for us to move between these different areas of the sample, we need to move the wave spacing. When this is at 100, it basically plays the sample like normal. So this is basically like a speed thing. Only it's not like gross beat or something like that, where the pitch will lower as you play the sound slower. Because the sound isn't being slowed down, it's just that milliseconds of the sound are being playing with longer gaps in between each one. So you might get some like strange little milliseconds of no sound, but it's really not very noticeable. But yeah, anyway, that's how that works. Also, I forgot if I mess around with the grain spacing. Is that what this is? That's no, that's the start. I don't think I messed around with the... Oh, no, I did. It's this long one over here. So, yeah, the grain spacing is just the how much each grain, like, overlaps, each millisecond of the sound. Because, like, sometimes you might prefer to just have loads of overlap for the phase cancellation and just miss out on all the gaps and stuff like that. Anyway, this is just me choosing a start point. Now, just so you know, you are going to have to test and feel around quite a bit to find a start point that you would probably, like, want it at, and to find the right amount of wave spacing. I'm not going to lie, I had to test a whole bunch of different... I had to mess around a lot to try and get a good part of the sample before I was happy with what I got. So, yeah, this is going to be a bit difficult, and it's going to be a bit hit or miss, probably. But, yeah, once all that's done, okay, this is a frequency, wave shaper, and level of band 7. So there's a parametric key clock. So, yeah, basically, I've got this, and I've coded it to this respace, which I will show you, but it's just a respace, there's nothing really fancy there. So it's over here, isn't it, that I've got all the weird stuff. Yeah, so... Okay, so anyway, I'll go into the respace for now, because I'm just trying to remember. Yeah. Sorry, I actually forgot what I did after this point, but I've just remembered it. So yeah, as you can see, this is just... 2 unison on a saw wave with a bit of sub, and the harmonizer gets turned on at the second set of 8 bars, which is why I've got it there. And the B section's the same, but the pitch is slightly lower, so that it creates the phase cancellation, because you know it's a respace. And then it's just being wave shaped, you know, distorted, just as usual. Going into here. And then there's the vocodex, which is actually, I don't remember putting that mix on, but it's not fully mixed, but I imagine there's a reason for that. So it's got a bit of sound goodizing on it, the orders on that, blah 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 is on that, blah 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 is on that. It's all a bunch of blah. There's no special stuff here, that's just what the vocodex is doing. and that's the modulator and that's the carrier. It's not on draft mode. I don't actually know what draft mode does, but I've noticed that it's been laggier when it's on draft mode, so I turned it off that. Yeah, okay, so here's where the main modulation is happening, besides the granulization. So what's going on here? We've got a high pass here with a little bit of what is basically resonance, and I think, yes, this is like a band stop that I'm automating, so let me just play this. It's going to lag, but so prepare your ears, but like... Yeah, so that's what's going on. All this is just like mastering stuff, because this sound had a bunch of tones that were super distorted, and that's kind of to be expected because there's a lot of distortion going on here. The thing is, I got a good sound, but it was way too quiet. I had to distort the hell out of it to make it like sound like a dubstep synth. And then obviously you get all these tones that are just horrible. So I've done as much EQing as I can, and I think I fixed it all up. At least as much as I can do. Oh, and by the way, if I'm doing any mastering stuff that's really weird here or bad, can you just let me know? Because, I don't know. Because you don't really see tutorials for how you should master your songs. I literally didn't even know that there was a limiter, like a fruity limiter, on all my tracks at the beginning for like 2 years. I was wondering, man, how do people get their sounds to be like all pop out and all that? Why does my sound so like flat? And it's just because of that. And I never knew. But yeah, anyway, there's no tutorials about that kind of stuff. So if any of you watching have any knowledge, then you can try and help me out with this. But yeah, there's a wave shaper here which is being automated. Yeah, the mix of that is being automated. And then there's Maximus, which... Man, I think I got all this like amount of like not full mix just to make, because there was to try and make it, because I was really wary of those tones that were just sticking out too much, but I still wanted to compress it, and I think that's why I've done all this stuff. It's a bit weird. I don't usually do this, but yeah, and I think that's about it actually. Oh yes, and I suppose while I'm at it, you might not get the exact same sound as mine, because what I do with my music, and I'm not sure if this is similar, the same as anyone else, or if this is really weird, but pull my drums here, and I've got 4 side chaining tracks here, which basically, as when something is routed to this track, they actually get their volume increased, because you can see it goes to 125%, but then, as you'll see, the kicks and the snares will knock the volume of these down. So this is full side chaining, which I don't use much, but I keep it there because sometimes there's some like airy sound it's good with. Then there's high side chaining, medium side chaining, and low side chaining. As you can see, they're all actually pretty high right here. It's just because this is a pretty like... Everything in this song is louder than what I usually do, and I already do things pretty loud usually. So I thought there needed to be more side chaining in this track overall, for it to all make sense. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.